was.
Well, I was.
They appointed me, so I appointed
Well,
you.
Debbie and I were talking about it afterwards, that, you know.
Okay, let's get started.
Anyway, it was just.
You're here, so we're okay.
Okay, yeah, we're good. I missed two in like 6 years.
Oh, look, here's your gavel. too.
Oh, great.
We're ready, we're live.
We're live? Okay, let's get started, everybody. We have a quorum. Do we have any public comments? Anybody want to say anything? Introduce yourself. I guess you guys are going to introduce yourself later. Okay, how about on to the approval of the minutes? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. New business. 30A Dive, or Dive 30A. Are you Walt?
Yes, sir, I'm on our way.
Hey, Walt.
Thank you guys very much for this opportunity for you all. What I'm asking for today is a positive recommendation to add charter permits to the President Beach Activities Ordinance for the purpose of diving operations. To give you guys a little background, I grew up around here, been diving, swimming, fishing, all kinds of stuff off these beaches, and I've also worked very closely with the Artificial Reef Association, Cultural Arts Alliance to get this underwater museum deployed, which has gotten a ton of great press. Been out to dive it several times and do photography myself. And it was always friends saying, can we go out there? Or I also run Snorkel 30A. People would ask us if we could snorkel the underwater museum. So after going through all this stuff, I said it's probably time for us to start launching dive operations off the beach. So we can just jump right into it if you guys are ready.
If you could make the microphone face you or something, because they'll never hear you on the video.
It says don't touch, so I
Don't touch.
obey the rules. But is that a little better?
That's as much as we're gonna get.
Yeah.
Oh,
I can
okay, I
project
mean,
a
it's
little bit
fine
more.
for us, I just am afraid nobody's gonna hear you on the video. It's-
Well, I can do my booming
Do the
voice.
best you can.
So we'll jump right into it. It's really all about launching those dive operations off of the beach. We can kayak out to them and everything, but we want to be able to get more people out there. So just going over a summary of our operations, we're going to go over locations, also the kind of structure of our charters, safety considerations, and also that beach activities ordinance, of course. So right here, just showing you guys kind of the main locations that we would be operating from. I have a main office and a warehouse that's right between Idle Hounds and Drayton Brewery, which is kind of centrally located there between our two primary launch locations, Drayton Beach and Inlet Beach. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes, even with fully loaded gear in the truck and everything. So with communication with the marine radios, anytime something were to happen, we could be on site very quickly.
Does everybody meet at your office, or do you meet on site, or?
We try to meet on site just so there's not a ton of driving. If there are any special gear considerations or anything like that for an individual, then we will meet them at the office, or if we need to evaluate their diving ability or medical history or anything. Otherwise, we can communicate with them and usually get them all geared up right there at the beach.
Okay.
So going a little bit further, sharing our marine resources in a safe, fun, and convenient manner. It's all about safety, fun, and convenience for us. So wanted to go over some of this stuff. All of our customers are vetted because we are getting into scuba diving. We have to know that they're certified. We have to know that they don't have any little medical red flags or anything like that. So there is a vetting process that we have to go through for each diver. They also have to sign a few different releases. One for coming out with us, and the other that says they're a competent diver, all of that stuff. So we have a good little bit of security just heading into it. Get them to carpool to the beach. All divers are accompanied by 2 staff. That's going to be a dive master, myself. I'm also working on my captain's license, but we also have a boat captain that would be the dry man on the boat. So if anybody comes up early or anything like that, we have coverage of those people. All of our primary dive sites are basically within about 1 to 2 miles of shore. We'll go over those locations a little bit more in detail in a second. But the big consideration there is that we're never going to be too far from shore. We're never going to be too far from the lifeguard stand. So if anything does happen, we can head right into the beach and basically make sure that everybody's going to be okay, if anything's going to happen. Have not had anything happen on my watch so far, but have been involved in a few little incidences with other folks. So all of our staff have to be certified with current CPR, basic water rescue as a minimum. All of our dive masters are actually, to be a dive master, you have to be a rescue diver. And so that covers us there. All of our boats equipped with GPS, marine radio, oxygen kits, and a spine board just in case. And the spine board, well, the way it's set up, it actually helps us kind of keep everything in the boat from popping right out. But if anything is to happen, we are fully prepared to handle those incidences. We are commercially insured and specialty insured through a company that underwrites strictly dive operations and have added coverage there just to make sure that we're all good to go, covering all of our bases. So the logos that we see here are just some of the organizations that we work with and or are members of. I was informed that we accidentally got the wrong fire rescue fire department logo, but we're going to be changing that to represent the South Walton Fire District. We have worked with them before on some of those incidences, like I said, that we've had experience with. So moving right along, Grayton Beach is really that primary launching site, but we also have Inlet Beach as a launch site. Going from those sites, we have access to several different options. This is coming from Grayton. You can see the Grayton Beach Lifeguard Tower right there next to the beach access. Gives us access to the Grayton Turtle Reef, which is 10 to 20 feet of water, so great for beginners, scuba divers, people, also snorkelers, if not everybody wants to scuba dive. The Underwater Museum of Art is 0.75 or 3/4 of a mile out, so still very, very close to shore, very convenient. And also, I mean, has really become a destination dive site. There are other dive shops in Destin and Panama City that are already coming here. We also have the Blue Mountain Beach Fish Dive Reef. There's another fish dive reef adjacent to the Underwater Museum. And then if you guys, basically just looking at these maps, kind of out more into that blue part of the water, there are various patch reef sites, little gullies and all kinds of little rocks that, I mean, great for fishing, as you guys have done, but also going to be great for diving, and I think we won't have a problem staying out of the Grayton Fisherman's Way. This is Inlet Beach right here. We usually, for snorkel tours, we'll head right out from the Orange Street, public access. So that's what that short little line is, going out to the Inlet Beach Grouper Reef. Launching, we'd be a little bit further east, and again, have access to the Snorkel Reef, the Fish Dive Reef, which is the pyramids, I'll show you guys in a second, and then again, various hard bottom and patch reef sites. So lots of diversity, lots of opportunities to see cool stuff. Now going into the dive charters, and we'll go over some of the details. You guys feel free to throw questions my way.
What is the farthest point that you would go out?
For diving, when we were on charters, I would say 2 miles.
Okay.
Would be the absolute farthest. We really don't need to go much further than about 1.5 miles, but just to kind of get that radius, I would say 2 miles. So we're going to be working with an 18 to 20 foot inflatable boat with a 40 to 50 horse motor on the back. So we can definitely get where we're going quick, but it also keeps things very lightweight and mobile, especially in the event of an emergency. We'll be taking 4 to 6 divers per trip is what we plan on. With the uninspected passenger vehicle or 6-pack, I'd be able to take up to 6. We really prefer to just take 4 and kind of make it a more personal and intimate experience for those people. We're going to be doing 2 and possibly 4-hour trips because of different limitations with the capacities of the boat. We might be coming back in to get tanks and things like that. So those, like a 4-hour trip, if we came in, we can either take all of our tanks out there, or we come back in and we might have to refill tanks just to keep room on the boat, everything like that, so it's not too heavy. Still working with those options, but all that to say that tourists and locals alike will have opportunities morning and afternoon, as long as the seas are cooperating in the weather, to get out to the Underwater Museum of Art and various other sites. Again, all of our staff, rescue diver certified. The captain will be CPR and basic water rescue certified. Have all the equipment that we need for communication and safety. And you guys can, these are not my boats per se, but you guys can sort of see what we're going for with those inflatable vessels. And then the picture there on the bottom right is actually the Underwater Museum of Art. That's a good friend of ours. If you guys know Drake Martin, that's his kid, Hardy. And got some great pictures in him. The underwater museum is awesome because it's actually less than 60 feet, so suitable for beginner divers and also kids alike. This is just a few of the things we can see out here, and one of the points that I wanted to make was the county has invested heavily in all of these artificial reefs and the deployment of the Underwater Museum of Art and everything. And we're really relying on either people with their own boats, kind of private charters, so to speak, and or folks from Destin and Panama City for people to actually get out there in a safe, convenient way. I have kayaked out there myself. It is a little bit of a paddle. I consider myself a pretty fit guy. But, you know, you like to be nice and relaxed when you're diving, and after a paddle like that, you may not be getting the most out of your tank, so we just want to help people have that opportunity. Spade fish, nurse shark, the top left and the bottom right are actually on the snorkel reefs. So again, 10 to 20 feet of water, and still see all kinds of great stuff. And then on the bottom left and top right, those the bottom left is Vince Tatum. He actually made the skull. Had a great first dive on it when we got him out there. And then we also have the kids that were able to climb in the skull and get a picture. So lots of fun opportunities out there for us. Now, when it comes to safety, I mean, that's got to be paramount. It's got to be our first priority, given that we are talking about scuba diving here. So, just to give you guys a little more background, I have over 20 years diving experience in a variety of conditions, a variety of countries. An open water instructor, rescue experience, also a full cave diver, mixed gas, rebreather. So, I've been diving for a while, and definitely interested in getting people out there and sharing these experiences with them. Experience conducting rescues in the Gulf. We actually had an incident where a boy was stung by jellyfish down on the bottom at the museum, and he went into anaphylactic shock underwater, is what we found out later. So we had to bring him up, bring him to the lifeguards station, and we're able to communicate with the proper authorities, and I mean, everything went super duper smooth. He actually had to be airlifted up to, or medevac, sorry, out to Birmingham just to make sure that everything was going good because his lungs filled with fluid. But everybody's cooperation, the cooperation of all those agencies, I mean, it made a not so great situation work out perfectly. Excuse me. Again, all of those primary dive sites are going to lie within 1 to 2 nautical miles of the shore of those lifeguard stations, so we're never far from help. And then when it comes to liability insurance, again, they have that additional coverage with different companies. One is going to be Outdoor Insurance Group out of Colorado. They cover all the gear, any sort of accidents that would happen, but then we also have specialty insurance through the Sensei and Bucky, which is that specialty dive underwriter. And they cover all activities where folks would be under supervision that involve diving. Any questions there? Good deal. So now we get to the beach activities ordinance, and just want to kind of touch on my own consideration of how we're working, how we want to work with you guys, and just cover all those bases. So going over some of this stuff, like I said, I've grown up here, I've met all those requirements for the beach activities ordinance. Still working on some of the county permits, and then there's also this fabulous meeting. Thank you guys again. The pictures kind of show a little bit about what we'd be doing. Launching the boat from a trailer. We also are working on a custom rack on top of our truck right now that would fit this boat and actually unload off of the side. Because it's an inflatable vessel, it can be carried by 2 to 3 people as long as it's not fully loaded up. So we can get in and out of the water pretty quick, and the IJ there is that we're not impeding the dredging passage. We will not need a charter fishing permit because we will only be diving, not harvesting fish. It's that leave no trace policy that we want to be in line with. For diving, we say take only pictures, leave only bubbles. As an underwater photographer, I can definitely adhere to that. Community participation, just several of the ways that I myself and my team have been trying to, help kind of get the most value out of the county's investment and all the Suarez efforts. We donate pictures, video to different nonprofits, to different news outlets. Actually, tomorrow I'm going to be a dive master for an NBC news crew, and they're going to be doing a story on the Underwater Museum, hoping to see it on the Today Show as well. We've got it coming out. So that's going to be very exciting. And that's why I included that picture of the Time magazine, which mentioned the Underwater Museum late last year as one of the top 100 world's greatest places to visit. With all of that press that's coming in for the Underwater Museum and some of our other reefs, it's really made this place a dive destination. And that's where we want to be getting people out there. One of the best ways that we can help the county get the most bang for its buck is by getting folks out there, making memories, doing those dives, having those experiences. And then the last point I wanted to make there is this would be a local business run by me and my team. We're all locals, and just having that appreciation for all the things that make South Walton South Walton. We really believe in and are passionate about this whole pursuit, and also about the county and our beaches and everything. So we want to do everything right, really take care of the place. Just in summary here, I don't know if you guys are aware, but there were a couple of dive shops started, I want to say in 2015, 2016. It did not quite work out. A couple of the reasons that we think that may have happened are one, with lack of a compressor, not being able to do their own air fills, but also not having a way to launch off the beach being the chief one. They were doing, I want to say they were doing snorkel tours and a couple of things like that, but it was all just very low key. What we'd like to do is there's a lot of divers in South Walton, but we don't really have a diving community because we don't have those diving resources such as a dive shop or a way to launch off the beach regularly and everything. So we really want to fill that need, help build a diving community here with all the artificial reefs that we're putting out there. There's big opportunities for research and all kinds of surveying, things like that. We'd be providing air fills, equipment service, full training and instruction. We're actually in talks to use some community pools that would be close to our headquarters there, so we can get people trained up, have them ride out. There's also referral dives where we'd be getting people from either different colleges or other dive shops, and they go through their certification process, but they still have 2 to 3 dives to complete their certification. And being a new dive destination, with the popularity of the Underwater Museum, we'd definitely be able to get those people coming down and making memories in Walton County. Another great thing is they'd be out on the boat with us diving, not on the beach. So this would be the easiest way to dive the Yuma. The trip from Destin to Panama City is a little bit, just shy of 20 miles. It takes, depending on the boat, an hour and a half to 2 hours. We would be able to get people from the beach out to the Underwater Museum site and various other sites in between 5 to 10 minutes. And again, safety considerations. We just want to help build South Walton's diving community, like I was saying, and foster safety and stewardship ahead of all this ecotourism growth that we're expecting, and it's starting to come in. Myself and several other organizations have been getting tons of calls. How do we get out there? How do we get out there? And we can either recommend the Destin or Panama City organizations, businesses to them, or if you're friends with a local that has a boat that can launch off the beach, that's really the limits of the options there. I think that covers everything. Just wanted to say thank you to you guys. Plus, it's just a fun picture. That's me poking out of one of the tetrahedrons or pyramids, which comprise mostly the fish dive routes, 9 to 10 fish dive routes that are out there right now. And we'd love to answer any questions you guys have.
I have some questions. Okay, the inflatable boats, what is the length?
So we're working with 18 to 20 feet, but it would be 20 feet max.
And what is the size of the motor?
Size of the motor, it's going to be somewhere between a 40 and 50 horsepower. We also have a couple other motors, a 9.9 horsepower and a 20 horsepower.
And what's the seaworthiness of this vessel?
Absolutely. As long as we're not going out in big waves. Basically, I think a good gauge is if the grading captains are not going out, we're probably not going out either.
Okay. And so the customers will meet you at the beach?
Yes, ma'am. They can either meet us at the beach, or if they do need to meet us at the shop to get geared up, then we would carpool them down to the beach and then bring them back to the shop after that.
Okay, and your customers will be open water certified?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and there'll be a master diver on every boat?
Every boat.
Okay, and you won't be going to any dive sites that are not, that are just dive sites that you've, that are not
No.
one of these tourist sites. You wouldn't be taking them to any rogue sites that are
Well, sure, there's a lot of rock out there.
No, that's what I'm talking about. I'm
Lot of
talking about
reefs.
foreign objects, ships or
So
jeeps, anything that may be out there.
There are some of those sites. It's not really public knowledge.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
There'll be captain number one that knows these few sites, captain number two that knows a few other sites. We are not really including, I have those in my own GPS, but we're not really including those as
Because
part
there
of
are
the
certain
process.
regulations that go along with those separate from,
Exactly.
and that's why I'm asking that question.
Well, and that's the other big thing is we don't want to be in the fisherman's way. There's, long-standing kind of unspoken conflict between dive boats that put that flag up and all the fishing boats have to stay away more than 300 or 500 feet. We do not want to step on anybody's toes. They've been doing this a lot longer than we have.
Okay, so if your boats have 4 or 6 customers, so I'm thinking about parking, they'll be parking at Grayton or Inlet at the Orange Street. Okay, so,
We're going to try and stick to all public parking, and again, even if we don't have to go back to the office or warehouse to get geared up, we could have them park in the public spots and then get them in the truck and take them to the actual site right back to the beach.
How many charter fishing permits are there?
15 charter fishing permits as it stands right now, I believe.
So you're technically trying to add like a new category, I guess?
So that's really the thing. Mr. Brian Hillenberger said that what we need to do to cover our bases is add charter permits for the purpose of diving only to the present beach activities ordinance. So what I'm requesting from you guys is a positive recommendation for those additional charter permits.
Brian, how many are we looking at?
Yeah, that's my
All right,
question.
so 2257 D3 regulates the charter fishing industry, caps it at 15 permits.
Mm-hmm.
They're renewable each year. If they're not renewed, then they go back into a lottery system where people can then apply for them. All right. And so in this case, this is very similar to the charter fishing
Mhm.
industry. And it could be done in 2 ways. It could be done as adding additional permit opportunities to the charter fishing industry. And then people could do fishing or scuba diving. So I believe there are some charter fishing.
Yeah, Mark, he runs.
It may be-
Dives.
excuse me. Or it could be done as a separate class of whatever number we feel is appropriate to recommend. And once again, I think that the proper way to do it would be by lottery of those, for people that are interested. As a county entity, you have to make sure that you give interested people equal opportunity.
Should we just like add maybe 5 more permits for anything
Well-
other than fishing? I mean, if they want to be a sightseeing boat, or something like that,
So there'll be some discussion on that, I'm sure, at the upstream or downstream advisory committees in BCC. I would predict that the charter fishing industry would say, we're running more charter fishing permits. I don't know, I'm assuming this, okay, speculation, to preserve their market share. And then, therefore, it would seem prudent to make a new class called scuba charter. But then there may be some opposition and say, well, we do scuba too, why can't you come, also I can do scuba.
Well, I think the difference there is whether they're harvesting fish. I mean, Mark's got a fish permit, so he does trips out there to go spearfishing,
Right.
but you're not going to be harvesting fish, so that doesn't fit in the fishing.
Well, it may not now, but maybe some other people that want to go out.
Well, if they're going to go spearfishing, that's fishing.
Generally with spearfishing, everyone does have to have their own license. The captain's license will sometimes not act as an umbrella for everybody.
Yeah, well, what I was getting at is we want to be careful that we don't restrict a segment of the code, then we would have to come back and rewrite the code in the event. It's, like I say, Walt's, desire is to take people out to scuba dive for recreation, but there may be people that want to go scuba diving to spearfish. And so I think we've got to be careful of what we do recommend to the downstream advisory committees, and so that's the discussion we need to have today is what is the best way to include, because you know, like you said, there's been a lot of money spent on snorkeling reefs, inshore fishing reefs, and offshore fishing reefs.
Yeah, I think it's one thing if you just want to go show them the reefs, but if it's another thing if you want to go spearfishing. You know, they're out there taking the fish off the reefs just like the fishermen are, and they're not going to want to, you know, any more fishing, you know, spearfishing or whatever. You know, so if you're going to go diving to spearfish, then you ought to just have to wait for a fishing permit to come available and get that one. You know, but if you're going to do something other than fishing, we probably need to have some kind of category for something other than fishing.
The other thing you also can think about as we're talking about revising or adopting the new code is enforcement of that code. And, you know, my department right now is not enforcing, you know, we'd be limited to what we see on the beach, you know, and what they're doing out there offshore, you know, every time I can. I don't really want to get into that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's their logistics. It's just a matter of who can launch from the beach.
So the other thing too is if you write a code that says you can only go recreational diving and not fishing, there'll be some people who have the expectation that we enforce that.
So how far do you go out for rescue?
We have our jet ski capability now that's going to be pretty close. We're trying to figure out how to get a jet ski out of the Greaton area. That's not happening right now, so the closest one that we have is at Bramble Grove, which is about a 3 to 4 minute deployment model. And as he alluded to, we had that incident with Andy's situation last year that went as well as it could, but it did highlight that it wasn't a matter of if, it was when something like that happened. So my concerns are, you know, obviously Greaton is an easy deployment point for you. So what are you suggesting, or what would the ordinance carve out for launch access at inlet? So would you be taking your vehicle down inlet? Like,
Yes, I mean, as far as I understand.
we have a ski
that-
there, so that'll be okay.
Well, and that, as far as I can understand it, that is a launch point that some degrading captains will use if conditions are not ideal at Braden. We just have to do that parking there at the Orange Street access and bring one down.
Let me ask you a couple other things. On the BWS certification, I see that your captain is CPR certified, but would you be, I would think that in the ordinance, any charter company that if we were to carve it out as a separate thing, and this is where I think that might be useful. I understand the downstream effects of carving out and writing more ordinance, which may need to be revised, but my concern from a safety standpoint is that you have one person who's CPR certified in BWS. BWS doesn't cover any first aid or anything like that. I would want something in there requiring that any company does it has at least the advanced first aid, which is a 21-hour course, if not the EMR certification, which is a 48-hour course. We'd be happy to work with any company that wanted to do that, to provide that at minimal or no cost, but that would be a consideration that in working with our lifeguard services, we would need to know and feel assured that you had that additional certification.
Absolutely.
Moreover, your radio communications, some sort of, you know, tapping into, because the way it works right now is that even if you're on your way in, you're gonna call 911. That's gonna get up to Defuniac and then get relayed down to us, to our dispatch, and then it's gonna get relayed. Sometimes that window can be up to a minute or two, and as you understand, sometimes situations resolve, unfortunately, in that span of time. So probably need to discuss, and that might be more of a logistics thing, but that's a concern I have, not for you per se, but if we were to carve out 5 or 6 more permits, is it some people without the resources or the same integrity or whatever you want to call it, that's something that we have a lot of concern about.
I completely agree with you on that, and I think, I mean, honestly, the more certifications, the better, especially if we're going to be, if you guys are going to be opening it up to other people. I mean, safety's paramount. The fact that we're diving, there's inherent risk in there, and like David said, I mean, if something does happen, you're already in a situation where every second counts. So,
Does your insurance require anything, any CPR, or
Yes.
what do they require?
so on the commercial gear side, since right now.
I mean, your liability, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, with the liability for the diving and everything, it is endorsed by PADI, and so I basically have to be a full instructor, open water instructor, which means I've gone through rescue diver, log however many dives, and have these experiences. The minimums there are going to be Well, I guess, yeah, for that insurance, it's going to be the instructor qualification. Currently, for the snorkel qualifications, we have to have basic water safety and CPR. But that's also, we're conducting those in 10 to 20 feet of water with a big giant raft that, I mean, nobody's ever far from help.
I have another parking related question. Your vehicle and trailer, are those going to go back to your office after they drop, or are they going to also need to park wherever?
So what we'll generally do, there will be a person in the vehicle that can either be on call if conditions might change or anything like that. If it's just a nice green flag, flat day, we'll probably have them send them back to the office. And as I mentioned before, we're working on a solution that just involves the roof rack, so we would not actually have to have a trailer. That said, I mean, the trailer will probably have to be an option, in which case, yeah, probably not going to be great to park it down there, but we could also park it on the...
Well, all the boat captains park at Grayton. What about Inlet, though? You can't really park a trailer at Inlet, can you?
There's a couple of spots in...
I mean, it's just a small right-of-way area.
There's 2 areas there carved out for what's called boat and trailer parking. And then there's, opportunity over at our...
At the park.
Inland Beach.
Yeah.
Of course, that's an opportunity that fills up. I think that he has a solution that the launch vehicle can go back to their office. They're connected by radio when it's needed for whatever reason it can be brought back.
I think it'd be great if you had a van with a roof rack and you just load everybody up at the shop and bring them down. And you got one parking space, no trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be great. But I mean, the parking, that concerns me, but it's the same with the the fishing captains, where do their people park? So.
And you wouldn't have any need to traverse the beach? You just either launch at one place or launch at the other, but you would not need to traverse back and forth on the beach?
If we did need to get anywhere on the beach, we would be using the vessels, or the boats out in the water.
Oh, okay.
So the reason I think that there should be a separate ordinance and separate permits for this is you go out in a boat to fish, you're in the boat, you're fishing. I'm not talking about spearfishing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you're in the boat, you're fishing. Is a totally different animal than him putting people under the water with gear diving. And I don't think that our fishing charter ordinance covers the things that need to be covered because we would be issuing a permit, thus making the county liable for things that might happen out there. And
I think we're just a beach launch permit. I mean, it's
Well-
just like a Grayton Beach driving permit. The county's not really liable for
Well,
anything that
people-
they're doing. Their insurance
that's
is,
right.
I mean, the county needs to make sure they have insurance. And that's why I was asking what your insurance requires, because maybe some of the things that David's asking for, your insurance already requires.
But the
So if the
insurance
county
requires, I think that most vendor for the county, it requires that policy to have the county on that.
that would be a good option, yeah.
The reason is that when people sue, they sue everyone.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that there should be an ordinance that covers the aspects of diving. And I think that it should create a certain number because it should be open just like fishing charters.
Now, we've already got fishermen out there that are diving, that are doing
And
spearfishing,
when that happens,
that's
different.
fishing.
That's fishing.
But they're going underwater to do it.
Well, then maybe that also needs to be addressed.
I think that is making a good point. If there needs to be a revision to the charter fishing section of the code to include some of the stuff you're talking about, then that could be done. But I think the point she's making about a separate class or perimeter.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking that fishing's fishing too, and like we were saying about the captains, they're not going to want, they're not going to want to have more, fishing permits. That gets in their market share. So if we're allowing, 5 more dive boats to go out spearfishing, that's in their market share. They're not going to want that, But if
They should be a separate class, I believe, the same thing. But if that's the case, I'm not sure if there's any way to require the type of inflatable, because no one's going to be fishing off that inflatable like the Zodiac type of boats. If there's any way to make it that if a dive permit is issued, that it's only going to be issued for that type of boat. Because who's, like Brian said, there's not going to be someone that's going to be regulating and wanting to supervise. Is this guy fishing? You know, because who knows when it's murky, the water's murky, so, you know, let's drop some lines today.
I think the
Well, the
boat
ordinance
captains
would
will
say you
police
can't.
that, the
Yeah.
charter captains are
Yeah.
gonna
Charter
police
captains will
that.
be reporting that.
Yeah.
So,
And
I think if we just add 5 more, or how many ever more we add, we just exclude any fishing. Spearfishing,
5 seems like a lot.
yeah, well, how many ever?
I think there needs to be a separate ordinance with specific.
Oh, I agree that, yeah.
But I don't, the number needs to be decided by whomever.
Number needs to be low.
I would just say that
that's
the
not enforceable.
scuba charters and the scuba people can decide what they want to do when they get out there on the pond.
Do we want to just do scuba?
I think it ought to be a separate code or a separate section. And one reason it is too is that when you include it as fishing charters, there's a possibility that other charter fishing people will be able to obtain those permits. And then you start to limit what you really are trying to consider today, and that is scuba charters.
You basically,
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'd say we should exclude any fishing from the new charters.
You do that, just that you call them scuba charters.
Why couldn't you just, somebody mentioned sightseeing, but why couldn't you just include a recreational
That's-
charter
yeah.
permit excluding any activities taking fish or, I don't know,
Yeah.
legalese?
Because, I mean, you know, next year somebody might want to come in and do a sightseeing
Well,
boat, you know, or.
because of the specifics of scuba diving and the certifications and the regulations and who's supposed to be on that boat with those divers. Those are very strict things that need to be written into that ordinance, that he's got a master diver.
Well, we can do an ordinance that just for recreational and then just have a subcategory for requirements for scuba or something like that. I just would hate to, if we're gonna add another category, we ought to make it a little broader than scuba and not have to do this again.
Well, sightseeing, well, I don't know.
I mean, I don't know if it'll come up, you know, but,
I think one of the main differences there with the fishermen, there are 2 fishermen that I know, 2 captains that we know of that will either do dive charters or will, with their own friends, be diving on
Yeah.
the boat. The way most of those boats are set up, and I mean, I do stand and be corrected possibly, it's hard to get a whole bunch of gear. It's hard to get 2 tanks, 12 tanks, 2 for 6 people, and then also have the dive master tanks and everything on some of those boats. They can take out 4 to 6 people fishing and just have plenty of rods and reels. It's taking up less space on the boat, not as much weight. They're making better money that way. We wanted to have a setup that was really built for divers. And thankfully, we haven't seen too many lionfish come in this way. But that was, spearfishing was something that was on the radar, I think, for 3 or 4 years down the road, something like that. But we really just want to get folks out there to see the museum, which I don't think any of them are fishing in the museum because there's too many little hooks out there.
Well, I can imagine with an inflatable boat, there could be some issues. So can I just make a motion then?
sure.
That we recommend that there be a new ordinance for permits for scuba diving and snorkeling boats, which would be included in that, to launch from our 2 launch sites. And then the specifics of the ordinance would be decided by, on down the line, what would be included and not included, and the amount of charters that are issued. Like we have 15 for fishing, they would more than likely make it 15 for scuba. They would probably make it the same, but that's not for us. We just want to recommend that there be a separate ordinance.
Yeah,
for
a new
this,
category.
so that there's no discrepancy about what's going on, especially if there's a liability issue.
Yeah, work with David to,
So you actually mean a separate ordinance or a separate section of the beach activities ordinance?
Well, a separate
Yes,
section
yeah.
of the
Oh,
ordinance,
okay.
yes.
okay, do we?
I'll second that. Except that I think 15 is too many.
Oh, well, I'm not saying that many.
Yeah.
I'm saying they will
Well,
make
the
the
county
decision.
can decide
The
that.
county will decide that, but
And the
Yeah.
requirements and all the
Yeah.
specifics.
Because the thing is, you do have people coming from other areas, you know, so you, go ahead.
To discuss that motion, I would like, just for the record, in the recommendation, whether it's included in the motion or in the actual ordinance, we do want some consideration in this section of the ordinance as to communications with safety and medical certification.
So I can amend my motion to add those two statements.
Do we need a second to the amended motion?
Yes.
I'll second the amended motion. Do we also need a list of recommendations that are not necessarily in the motion, but things that we've inquired about and been given answers so that the BCC or TDC, whoever's doing this next, I guess TDC, knows kind of the concerns we expressed?
Okay, so let's finish this motion and then make another motion for those. Don't you think?
Okay, I don't want to repeat it because I don't think I can.
You got it, Stacy?
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you guys very, very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Do we actually need a motion to send just a
We
list
need a
of
motion for anything.
recommendations or not?
You have to have
I think
a-
maybe Brian would just communicate that to TDC or
So
whoever.
on something like this, it's appropriate for y'all to take a motion and second.
Well, we added to have the certain safety certifications and communications and stuff. Is that enough, or do we?
Well, I'd like to see parking considerations. I make a motion.
That, yeah, we're gonna need
Yeah.
to, that with this and with the fishing, I think
Yeah.
that's a
I
concern.
make a motion that we send a set of recommendations or concerns. I don't know what to
What's the
call it.
timing on this? Are we gonna try to come up with some recommendations for the next meeting in 2 months, or?
You know, the gist of your motion today is that you recommend that a scuba charter category be established and that it include all the requirements of a safe and efficient operations that are required by other regulatory agencies. And so the National Dive, the CPR, and all that. And as it moves through the next advisory committee, my guess is that when it makes it to the BCC, they will say, put together a committee to refine and define the actual terms and conditions of the code section. And in that, it'll start to mirror the charter fishing and then the other water sports activities that are regulated.
So our motion should be that there be a committee formed to draft the ordinance, the section of
Right,
the
would-
ordinance.
I think that,
The BCC will probably make that.
But that's our
Professionals
recommendation,
do that.
that's our recommendation, is that a committee be formed
yeah.
to draft the section of the ordinance for scuba diving. So that's the motion.
Okay, we need a
I'll second.
second.
So is,
Motion
you
and
make
second.
that and I'll second it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, that carries. All right, move on. Old business. Any old business to talk about?
The bathrooms at Grayton, any?
We have a public workshop scheduled on the 22nd at 5:30.
Do what?
Bless you if that was.
No, that was a giggle.
Each access is in this is on the 22nd. We have a workshop scheduled in the near future.
It is on the 16th.
16th.
at 5:30.
That was the giggle.
5:30 p.m. here in this room, be a short presentation on some conceptual designs and a discussion on the constructability report. And we'll go from there. This current form, we're talking about on the east drive on, adjacent to the boardwalk. It comes off of Buckhill. And, there's a modest 2 or 3 fixture per gender restroom building.
So like in front of the properties that are there, in that
It'd be,
triangle?
Yeah, directly adjacent to the each drive on where the drive on the boardwalk. And currently it's talks about putting it right there where what's called the Banfield Spur connects to the Garfield boardwalk on the west side of it. However, there's been some initial discussions with some of the people in Great Beach, and
They don't want them there.
Is to move a little further north. Which will help out. That area is actually undergoing a change in its flood zone, designation. And the further north we get it, the easier it will be to build.
But the closer you are to the outfall.
The
Further north. You're talking north. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
The closer we are to the north, the more we go north, we actually, depending on when we start the permitting effort, we may be in a situation where it makes it easier. It would be even different.
Because what's the
Where's it
date?
gonna be north?
Huh?
Or where are you talking north?
So right now, it's positioned that those two boardwalks come together. And so that is approximately 60 to 80 feet south of the pavement.
Okay, so you're just gonna move it up to the pavement? Okay.
On the report that I'll share with y'all via email, you'll see there's a suggested change in flood zone designation in that area. And so it moves it in, the flood zone is changing. So right now it's in a, I think it's, I'm not sure, is that AE 13 or something else 13?
VE?
I don't think it's VE.
No.
But at any rate, that means we got to be at 1 foot above base flood elevation. So before it would be 14 feet. That boardwalk's at about 8 feet above sea level. And so the engineer record is looking at exemptions or exclusions or something where a half house doesn't have to be. There are opportunities to be there, but to build a structure that has some flood relief in it and all that.
Yeah.
And,
Vents.
huh?
Vents.
Vents, right. Because, you know, if it's at that elevation, it really starts to become probably more problematic than what people want to put up with.
Oh, yeah. You can block their views.
So boardwalk, you got to change elevation 8 or 4 or 6 feet. You know, that's a pretty long boardwalk. And that needs to be structured and placed out there that, you know, FDEP.
Zigzags.
Initial discussions is there may be some opportunity to put it at the same elevation as the boardwalk, which would be ideal.
Weren't there some discussions at one time about Red Bar?
Yeah, putting it with the red bar dumpster.
I mean, has anybody talked to them?
They're fast tracking their construction and, you know,
Talk to the architect. Just slip a little
Well, I had talked.
restroom in the corner.
I talked.
unfortunately, we can't do that.
Well, you know,
So has anybody called Ollie?
like in the place.
Has anybody called Ollie and asked him about it?
Well, Mac. I spoke to Mac.
Enter into some kind of private partner, you know, relationship or agreement. And to do that would be a lot of discussion and a lot of meetings and.
I don't think so.
Well-
Even decided we could do that or want to do that, it would be, you know, building.
They don't have to actually be connected, but just connected to the same lines.
I'm not contacting Ollie, but I don't think it'd be feasible for him, nor I think it would be fair to him, because it would slow down his process. And he has indicated, you know, that he is doing as quick as he can. He's building new restrooms within his facility that are going to be much better than what he had.
Well,
Yeah, that's not saying a lot.
I think really, the best thing in this case is to let him build his restaurant, build restrooms that meets the code and what he feels is appropriate for the use that he gets there, and then we build our own restaurants.
Well, the people are using his restrooms. They're coming in. People are coming in using his restrooms from the beach. I mean,
Yeah, but in the new code, the design would probably kind of prohibit that a little bit better than it did before, because it was pretty wide open before.
well, people go. What they do is they go in and buy a drink and use their, a tea or something, and
Yeah.
use his bathrooms. But
I think it's a beneficial relationship with both parties. You know,
I just wish they could be located in that right-of-way area right there where it's not affecting homeowners that are up in arms about them being in front of their house.
Right now, we've not got any opposition to the location we have picked, except we'd like to have it move a little bit further north, and that comes from the two houses that are east of the house that's right next to the red right-of-way on Garfield. All right, so the houses would be, that I would predict would be mostly affected. They don't have any opposition to it right now, or they have not communicated to me
They haven't voiced it to you.
or to the other people in Great Beach. So this was actually presented at a homeowners association Easter weekend. And from what I've heard is that it was well received, and there doesn't seem to be any open opposition to it. Now, that doesn't mean that in the future somebody can come in and say, you can't do that.
Wasn't anything like our parking lot meeting.
You know, but you know, there may be some permitting issues that say you can't do it where we would like to do it. But I think it needs to be as close to the boardwalk facility as it can be, because that's where people will go to use it. It may get moved over to the west side. We have, there's an opportunity over there. There are some other issues that occur over there that, you know, don't make it the best place, but those issues can be over there.
Well, anything that gets it the farthest away from the lake and the outfall is the best
The
thing.
problem with West Drive on is that the old house, the yellow, the old house, their access goes, you know, off of the West Drive. And so if we build an outhouse on the most northern piece of property that we lease from the state there, we would have to build a boardwalk that either they could drive over or drive under. And that becomes problematic. And, you know, so, or the boardwalk could just start, you know, south of that, their access into their property. You know, there are some ways to do that, but when that was first talked about, there was some opposition from people on the west side of the West Drive.
It's a lot further for people to go to, really,
Depending
to
on
that
where you
west
are.
side.
I mean,
Well, I
the
mean, it's,
people congregate all along that
Yeah.
1,800-foot beach.
yeah.
And so, you know, either one of those locations is certainly closer than that are.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
So anyway, 16, 5:30, we'll come on and participate.
Other old news is, how are the managed vendor sites going? I've heard nothing but good.
Me too.
So it's working good. You know, we've had a few issues that we actually knew we were going to have a few issues about. But overall, the program is working as designed, and we expect that we move into summer, that it continues to work as designed, and hopefully the county commission will see that it is, and next year move it on to the other regional beach accesses and possibly some of the larger beach accesses that have a lot of public beach.
And has Graydon actually been implemented now?
Pardon me?
Has Graydon been implemented? I knew they voted, or
It starts the 15th.
it starts the 15th of May?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay.
The association that has the management contract, that Philip is part of, is ready to get started. So, that was a little bit different, as it does maintain a vendor zone, and that vendor zone will be what was the middle vendor zone, or the middle area that was a vendor zone. So it would be just to the west of the East Drive on, and then partly across the beach towards the West Drive.
Well, congratulations to everybody involved in that, because it's uncanny, the difference.
Well, it is, and I
in
told
people's
Brian.
reactions.
I told Brian when I was out there Easter Sunday, you know, it is such a stark difference. And I have had numerous people call me, a lot of clients and different people call and say they are just so excited about it, to go down to the beach and it be like it is. And, you know, things being put away in boxes and all these chairs not being piled up right where they walk off and everything. They're just, the public is elated at this
Philip, I know
point.
you've been working on that for years and years.
It's been really good, and I
Yeah.
appreciate the opportunity to do it. And like
Well, thank you.
Brian said, we're learning a few little things, but nothing major at all. And I think it's going to be the future of everywhere. And I'm just glad that everybody worked together to get it done and nothing crazy happened to, that hurt all of us. So it's been good. And anytime you do, what I would say, if you ever have bad feedback, it's like I tell everybody, give them my cell phone number. I'm glad to talk to anybody so we can improve.
Because
and
this is a concept.
Well,
We're
Yep.
going, that's what we're doing.
And,
The only bad feedback I've heard is that it's not implemented across the
Yep.
entire beach.
and
That's
our
it.
biggest challenge was hiring after spring break had already come. So there's such a huge hiring push by St. Joe, by all the vacation management companies in February, that everybody gets hired up for spring. So we're kind of just grasping for people. But going into next year, when we say, hey, we need to hire 25 people and it's January, it's going to be fantastic.
Well,
So-
every business is going through that right now.
Yeah.
Exactly. But we're paying very, very well and getting very good people. So I'm excited, and I think it's done well. But if anybody ever has any feedback, please call me and give it to me so we can make it better. But thank you for giving us a
I
chance.
can give you, we're out there every day at both locations, and the feedback that I've gotten from my guards is that it's changed the dynamic completely. We used to have to be the arbiters of complaints, and people would come to us to complain and expect us to do something, and that has almost completely dropped off.
The attitudes have changed.
Yeah.
I think it's
Greatly.
I think
Yeah.
it's because of Mr. Brian Harmony Kellenberger.
Peace on the beach, peace on the beach.
Peace on the peak.
Yeah.
Got a presentation today at 1:30, beach operations, harmony on the beach. That's part of it.
I missed, and I apologize, a quick thing of new business. Can we step back to that real quickly?
Sure.
Grayton Beach, the boards, the boardwalk that's on the east side. I mentioned this too, that it's got a big gap there, making it. I tried to go out there and I got stuck on it. So I don't know how we put that in so it can get looked at.
I'll notify Josh this afternoon when we get back to the office today. And he'll look at it this afternoon, first thing in the morning, we'll put it in.
That'd be great.
So this was on the,
East side, next to the access point, the truck access point. That's along the Dune Lake.
Garfield.
okay, so you have issue getting from the pavement to the boardwalk.
Correct.
Gotcha. We'll address it. We'll fix it before the weekend.
And I just wanted to see if about the mats that are out at Wallene. If we've done anything for this coming season, so they're basically, I guess, pulled up and leveled out more often. Remember, I made the comment that they were so crowned on top that I went out and I thought I was going to tip off, and I was scared. I was nervous out there.
Okay, I'll address that with Josh as well, and I'll give back to you on what our current frequency is, and we'll establish a new frequency that makes it so the mats are level.
I talked to some other people that were out there too on wheelchairs.
I
With the
was
same
actually out there
concern.
a couple weeks ago, and I noticed that crowning you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to Josh at that point that I didn't discuss frequencies and stuff, but I had a specific discussion with them.
Okay.
With the goal being that they have a consistent flatness instead of a periodic flatness, roundness.
Okay. And then, is there any kind of update on adding more mats to more beach accesses
We
yet?
have not, we started as a pilot program. To be quite honest with you, the permitting of it is laborious. In the future, it may be easier. It took us, 8 or 9 months to get that. And the basic attitude of the FDEP is no more than 10 feet past the line of permanent vegetation. And at Wallene, it's a little bit unique there, as in, what they'll do is they'll connect the line of permanent vegetation on the properties adjacent to you, and they'll draw that line there. So if you know the Sunset or Sunrise neighborhood, the lady that lives there on the east side of Wallene, and she's done a good job of building her dune system out. And so they're artificially, and if you went right off into the boardwalk, the map wouldn't be very long. you know, in the future, the short answer is I have not looked at doing any other accesses. We can, and if we do that, you know, I would think that one of our larger beach accesses like Miramar or Inlet Beach would be a good opportunity to do that. Santa Clara is handicap accessible, but it's got a very long boardwalk.
Very long.
Huh?
Very long.
Very long, yeah. So I wouldn't recommend that one. Blue Mountain Beach, not accessible, or through ice, not accessible. Red Law Lane, Fort Panic. Fort Panic would be a good opportunity.
Deer Lake, I was out there last night, but once you get there, that's it. You know, but that's a park, but once you get to the end, you're at the end.
That's the world's longest boardwalk.
Oh, I know. My husband wanted to we have relatives here, and he wanted to take them out there for sunset, and I said, oh, no.
I went one
was
time and never went back.
It's the best place to see the sunset because there is a sunset deck, you know, and anyway, I went.
Get your exercise.
I took pictures,
Deer Lake received some funding from our DDA Phase 3 money. My understanding that they're still doing design and permitting on what they want to do with it. I think they may have started on supplement, but I think they're getting new parking area, new regular restrooms versus the ones they have now. And I think there is some work to be done on the boardwalk. I don't know if it includes ADA accessible onto the beach.
Well, it does go down to the beach, but once you get there, you can't get onto the beach. You know, you're just at the bottom.
They
But
have mats at Great Beach State Park, but they don't maintain them every day.
They're only like, they're so short. It's like barely being on the beach.
mhm. Yeah.
We're doing budget formation right now. I'll add some money in for inlet and Fort Panic. And they can start the design and permitting process. There is a new guy at FDEP that handles our area for what's called CCCL permitting, which is what this is under.
Yep.
And he seems to be a little more logical than the last guy.
Well, that's good.
Maybe easier. Each one, obviously each one has to get easier, right?
Yeah, right away.
Yeah, they didn't get that, man. But we'll do that, okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Any more old business? Matt, you want to give us an update?
Yeah, I'll make this pretty quick. I just want to give everybody an update on the countywide beach surveys. So those have all been completed. We started, I think it was early March. Some adverse offshore weather, a lot of people on the beach have made survey data collection difficult, to say the least. Have some issues with gaining access to the state parks, and the way the DEP standards are written, the upland data collection, the dune and the beach that a surveyor would normally walk with a rod, must be collected within 14 days of the offshore portion, and we must have a good overlap between the two. So capturing good weather on the upland and good weather on the offshore can get difficult. So quite a bit of the survey data we had to do 2 and 3 times over because we weren't within that window. So that's what took us a little longer than anticipated. But we do have all the data now. The surveyor is doing his final QC reviews. That is a mean high water line across all of the private and county-owned properties, and then beach profiles across all 28 miles of county shoreline. So that's including the state parks. We didn't feel there was a big need to do the survey of the mean high water line within the state parks. It's all state property there. It was a cost saving measure for us. So you will definitely have that at our next meeting. We should have some nice survey drawings and some nice presentations showing you what exactly we collected, and we're going to try and make some comparisons of the most recent data, which I think was 2014, 2015, and then some further historical data, just to show you how the beach is looking in relation to those historical time periods. And then the last item was, we've been slow walking this for a while because it is a contentious issue, to just call out the elephant in the room. You recall a year or so ago we did the Walton County, and the formal name escapes me, I think it was the post-storm management plan. And in that, we've made recommendations. One of those, and the most important being, well, there was multiple recommendations. The first was collect annual or semi-annual beach profile data, beach data. So we are doing that. We're working with Brian on what we can discuss further toward the end of this year. I'm not sure we're going to do it every year or every 2 years. I think there's benefits to both. But using that data and then obtaining a countywide beach restoration permit. So you recall the HSDR project. I'm just going to read you the summary from our scope. After discussions with the Beach Management Committee, TDC, and staff, we recommend the county request regulatory authorizations from both the DEP and the Corps of Engineers for a countywide beach restoration project to benefit from the previous regulatory reviews and greatly expedite any beach management or restoration activities the county or beachfront property owners may pursue in the future. So basically what we're saying is we are not doing a beach restoration project. We are permitting a beach restoration project. So should that permit be needed, whether it be another Michael or maybe just a small minor tropical storm, and we need to do a small dune restoration project at the east end of the county or the west end of the county, this all-encompassing permit can easily be modified. But having all the environmental reviews performed, having all of the regulatory authorizations in place, we can easily go back to the regulatory agencies and move forward with an implementation plan very quickly, as opposed to, you can imagine right now, Bay County, Gulf County, they're scrambling to get beach permits for Mexico Beach. It's likely going to be 12 to 16 months, maybe 18 months before they can even start putting sand on the beach, or before they get their permits to be ready to put sand on the beach and go out to bid. If we can skip that process, that long-term regulatory review process, it'll allow us to respond in a much more expedient manner. But as Lisa knows, she was here on, and John, many of you were, over the last couple of years following the HSDR project. This is something we've always wanted to do. We are working toward that. Our contract is going to be going in front of the TDC, I believe, next month. Get that confirmed with Jay. And then ultimately, we're going to bring that to the BCC. And there's likely going to be maybe some additional public workshops or some public dissemination of information. We want everyone to be aware that we are getting this permit, but we want them to more fully understand the intent of why we're getting this permit. This isn't the county going out doing a beach restoration project. This isn't us trying to go and move forward. And to give some of those folks some peace of mind, whether it be a federal project, whether it be a state project, there's still additional tasks to be made in the future, such as even if we have this permit today, if we wanted to go out and nourish the beach on the west end, or the east end of the county, Inlet Beach, for example, those folks, if it was a full-blown beach restoration project, we still need an erosion control line. We still have to get approval from those property owners. If it was a federal project, we still need that and the construction easements. The county would likely need construction easements for any project, whether it be a small dune project or whatever. So there's many, many more private reviews and private authorizations that will be needed for these projects, and we want folks to understand that. So if you hear that coming up in the future, the next few months, please help us educate the general public. We want to be as open and transparent as we possibly can, and we don't want anyone to get the wrong ideas. So
I'm wondering how this is all going to play out with customary use.
that's
You know?
exactly the concern.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
a lot
you
of-
know, it comes from both ends too, you know, that, you know, you got people that won't let us access their property, and so we're gonna try to restore it after a storm, and then you got taxpayers' money that's going to restore this stuff, and, you know, to people that won't let the public use their property, their
Well-
beachfront.
Well, can I ask you a question? First off, this is similar, this permit is similar to our permit to open the outfalls. So it would be if we had to have it, we would use it. Like we have those permits, we don't use them unless we get to the trigger point.
I think the key words are, it is a proactive effort to be able to not have to suffer through this activity period after a storm hits us. And the other key
Right, and that is where the misnomer is. As a beachfront property owner during many storms, people believe that those areas were repaired and renourished by tax dollars, and they weren't. We paid to have our dune system restored. We paid to the mean high water line to have that sand brought in. At Emerald Hill in Seagrove, as an example, it took everything under the building. So we had to put everything under the building, build our dune system back, put in the bellows and all of that. The only assistance we had from the county at that time was to use some very large dump trucks that could traverse the beach. That was the only assistance. We paid actually $850,000 for that restoration. The homeowners did. And so there's a belief out there that private homeowners, if there's a storm, it is being paid for by tax dollars, and it is not.
Well, the cleanup is, I mean, all the debris on the beach is going to be cleaned up by the county because it's a hazard, you know?
It just depends on who,
That's all going to be cleaned up before the National Guard lets us back into our neighborhoods.
To be honest with you, most of what goes falls to pieces ends up in the coastal dune like outfalls, I think, because it's just.
Well,
Star Wars Lake.
Star Wars look like.
The west side of Star
But-
Wars.
So-
I got it all. I
Yeah.
did it.
I think that what happened after a storm is pure speculation on our part right now. But this is to not have to suffer through that long period of time. Let's don't wait for a storm to hit to seek these
And
permits.
then start the.
Now,
But at that
now what's
time-
different than Opal? Because I remember like the day after Opal hit, Jay had a machine like 30 feet out in the Gulf scooping dirt up for Destiny there.
I don't
Yeah,
know if that was a legal activity.
it was an emergency permit.
Well, and I want everyone to.
That was a very
that's
long
very
time
good
ago.
point. After Dennis, we have numerous seawalls in Walton County. The state has told us that will not happen again.
Yeah.
Those
The
were not to
county-
be put in,
The
yeah.
county has ordinance on their books now to where even under the emergency authorization, you cannot install any coastal structure that may potentially harm the overall coastal system or your neighbors, et cetera. That's gonna be very hard to show, but I want, just to Brian's point, I want everybody to understand, this not only benefits and expedites the permitting for the county, but also for private property owners. So let's just say Michael came a little bit further east, and Alice and Rosemary and Inlet all needed to do a dune restoration project. Having the I'm not saying they're not gonna need a permit again, but having the environmental reviews done, the sea turtle reviews, the critical habitat reviews, the shorebird reviews, having those done would greatly expedite, even if it was a private project done 100% solely by Rosemary. Having this permit to reference those regulatory agencies would greatly expedite their review process and their permitting, their individual permitting. So it's not just a benefit for the county, but for all property owners involved.
Well, for Emerald Hill and Seaside, which I was homeowners at both, during that time period, it took us a year at that time to even get the permit to do the bellows and to get because we didn't just put in a seawall. Like some people just went in and did it without their permit. It took a year. We could not get back in our property for 18 months. And so this will affect private homeowners that have to restore as well as the public. And I think that's why this board, if you're asking us to, advocate for this, we all need to understand those specifics.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
And to that point, I do think it would be beneficial if we did have a recommendation that went to the TDC and then ultimately the TDC to the BCC of, our beach management committee is in support of this. But in my scope, the county is not currently planning to construct an HSDR or any other beach restoration project at this time. The county simply seeks permit authorization to expedite permitting for potential future management needs in the future. So we try to make it as clear as possible from our post-storm assessment, our post-storm management plan, all the way through this scope of work. We're trying to be as open and transparent. We're not pushing a beach restoration project. That's not the intent at all. It's just getting the authorization in place should it be needed.
So what will we be restoring?
Well,
if a storm comes.
This is a county-wide beach restoration project, so this is county line to county line. Just imagine what was constructed over Sandestin and further to the west, from the county line to Sandestin. That was the Walton Destin Beach Restoration Project. That is a full beach template, meaning a 200-foot or so extension of a water line, a 20 to 40-foot wide dune, vegetated dunes, sand fencing. We're not looking at individual boardwalks and accesses because there's too much private property in between, but we're permitting the full beach restoration template. Now, in the future, if we decide, instead of constructing all 20-plus miles, we're only going to do this 1 mile section, well, then the permit would be modified. If we decide we're not doing any beach restoration at all, we're just doing dune-only restoration, the permit would be modified. And not only would the permit be modified, those property owners would be asked for their construction easement, whether there's a federal construction easement, whether there's an ECL that's required. All of those steps would happen, but that's more in the county and the property owner's control. The hard part, the longer term portion, the DEP and the Corps of Engineers review, those would already be done. And we're doing it in a large scale. So it's easy to take the big pie and scale back. It's hard to take a small piece and go forward, or go big. So we're trying to take a conservative look at permitting a large scale beach restoration project for the county in the instance that, if anything, will scale it back.
So I have two questions. One is this data that you're collecting now for this permit, how long would that be good for?
Usually the state likes to see survey data collected within 6 months to a year. We can provide justification that we haven't had any storms and we can do some spot checks, but you usually don't want to push it more than years.
Yeah, because with the dune lakes, we have to apply every year for the number of permits we have per year that we're allowed. Okay, so say we had a storm like Dennis, or, we had several right there in a row that did the most of the damage. That's what happened. It was one right after the other. And they were like tropical storms and a hurricane. There was 2 tropical storms and a hurricane, I think, that did it all. So say we did have a massive storm and we have the white sand ordinance and we're renourishing. What is the resource for that sand, and would there be enough?
That is, I want to say the $1 million question, but that is one of our biggest difficulties. For this specific permit, what we would be, because it's such a large scale project, just similar with the HSDR, we would target the offshore borrow site. That is the only location where we could find a sufficient quantity of sand. If we scale this permit back and we say, we're just going to do a 2 mile dune-only restoration project, that's likely something where we could have this modified and say, we're not going to the borrow site, we're going to this upland sand mine. They have their DEP certification, or it's a approved beach quality sand source. That's likely something that can happen within 30 to 45 days.
And how many of those do we have?
Not many.
There's nothing on intercoastal anymore, is there?
No, when we were
Sites.
working with the Corps of Engineers, they had done a pretty expansive review. So you're all familiar, I refer to it as the ditch, the intercoastal between the Arb Bay and Panama City Bay. Those spoils areas are actually on private property, a lot of which is owned by St. Joe. The Corps of Engineers just leases that from those property owners. Once the sand is up on the private property, they sell it. And they're allowed to, and they get a premium for it. And now with all the building and development that's been going on, that white, that pretty white sand it's requiring a premium. So there's small patches here and there, I guess, to round it out, but the only mine that I'm aware of is, I believe, Sykes Mine north of Panama City, and it's very expensive and it's a very long truck haul. But there's just not the sand resources that we had. Like Owl's Head, they were washing a lot of sand after Hurricane Dennis. They're not in operation any longer.
It was $25 a yard then, so you're looking at $30 a yard now at least.
Easily.
Yeah.
And, after a storm, you can imagine that cost is just going to go.
And what is it dredging it? It's like $4, $6.
And it's anywhere between 6 and 8, depending on the scale of the project. But one thing to keep in mind, I do understand there's concerns with the sand quality, but if we were to look at a 5 mile long dune restoration project, we're talking about possibly 1 million cubic yards. Where are we ever gonna find 1 million cubic yards? But in that sense, you could dredge the offshore, you could get it very cost effectively, and by the time it's vegetated and the sand fences are placed, you know, if there were concerns with the color, the shell content, it's a dune. It's still beach quality, and it has been deemed that by the state reviewers, by the state geologists. But the color content is not the same because that sand hasn't seen the light of day for, you know, millennium perhaps. It hasn't been tumbled and polished. It hasn't been hit by the sun. It hasn't seen those types of processes in a very long time. It's just been sitting on the bottom collecting algae.
So would it be tumbled as it was brought in?
Oh, the
It'll be
hydraulic
bleached.
dredging process is very violent, yes. And you do see a lot of cleaning in that process, and then once it hits the beach, I encourage you to go out to Holiday Isle. You still do see, you know, some shell fragments in the beach. Navarre Beach was nourished with a borrow site that was in about 40 to 50 feet of water.
And it's not like ours.
I agree. There's nothing that's going to be natural that mimics the existing beach because that beach has been exposed to the sun and the wind and the surf
Well, let me ask you
for
this.
quite some time.
Typically, when our beaches get, critically eroded after a storm event, we see a lot of peat. So what would be your preference? Is, some sand that's not quite as white as it used to be, or peat?
There's a lot of clay too.
Well,
In the
well,
dune spaces, you
after
have-
this,
Hot clay.
after this situation, where we had to renourish and everything, and we went by the guidelines and we did not pump anything out of the borrow site, it solved it. And a lot of times, it naturally solves itself. And so I would prefer not the borrow site, if possible, if it wasn't that bad of a situation. And if you'll remember, that was the opposition to renourishment, was the borrow site. That was the biggest opposition when we had that.
I think that was a unpure motivation. I think the biggest opposition was ECDL.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, of course, but
And I
for
understand why. I understand why.
Panama City-
It still comes down to.
Panama City, it's awful now because of pumping it up.
And there's new technologies with Panama City. They have some shell fragments. I admit you always get something that comes out, but they went from a 2% shell content, to less than 0.5%. And they paid an extra $1 million, but they had that shell screener, where as the sand was pumped onto the beach, it went through a series of conveyors that actually pulled all of the majority of the shell out. And then they took it to Ace Hardware and sold it to the tourists. But there's a lot of technologies that are coming online, either screening on the ship, screening on the upland, and possibly the washing technologies that we don't even have yet that may come online in the future. So what we're trying to do is give our biggest, most conservative project now, and we can easily scale back. If it is permitting an upland borrow site, that's just sending the certification and the sand data to the state to having them review, and they typically review that pretty quickly. Getting a new offshore borrow site approved, that's probably a year, if not longer. And
So there are options to find upland sites. Do you think?
I don't think it's not economical.
Currently there are, but they're small scale and they're very costly. Yeah.
You know what's interesting to me though is that what I remember you terming sacrificial sand at one point, but so much of the sand that's in our dunes and things that gets swept out into the Gulf during storms, a lot of it comes back. And it's our sand, it's our silica, whatever.
We had the two hurricanes, Dennis and I think it was Wilma, that hit in the same year. They're tropical storms. They were a little offshore, but one of them took all our sand, and the next one brought it all back.
Brought it back, and I think
Well, actually, the steps that were destroyed in the first one were buried under when it came back.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's one reason that you meet a lot of resistance on the sand quality is people feel like
Yeah.
patience, a lot of that returns to us over time. It may drift to the east and drift to the west and whatever, mostly to the west, but it's our sand that comes back to us. And so, I know I went to Jetty East because during all that, remember how they used to tell us go to Jetty, or what was that?
Jetty East was the condo.
That was one of the places. So I went and I collected this little bucket of sand from my front yard, so to speak, and then I collected one from Jetty East. And then I went to Sandman, who had raked the daylights out of Jetty East after the renourishment there, and collected a bucket of the shell fragments that they'd collected. And I never got to show them to the commissioners because they got so frustrated with all the comments from everybody else. I didn't get, they ended it before I got to show them my little buckets and give them to them. But
You got a visual aid.
it was a very big difference from what was right in front of me to what was on Jetty East, and that was after it had been raked and raked and raked and raked and raked. And I don't know, I think that's where you're gonna get a lot of resistance about that. You're gonna get a lot of resistance about the ECL, which I know you have no control over. And there's just trust issues.
I think
There's
after a
just plain
storm, there's
trust
gonna be a lot
issues,
less
you know?
resistance
And that.
after the storm.
You might be surprised.
Yeah,
by
we've
that.
never, Gulfront homeowners have never, they've just restored their beach and not ever
Yeah.
argued.
I mean,
So
I paid $25,000 one time to have sand
Yeah.
put under to help support. Fortunately, my house wasn't condemned.
back to
Yeah.
the permit, what are we, what's the county renourishment, renourishing? Are we just renourishing the public property?
Well, hang on a
Yes.
second. So let's talk about the differences, all right? The HSDR project is a proactive approach.
Yeah.
Hurricane storm damage reduction project.
Right.
Purely proactive to shore up, so to speak, and protect other structures that provide the economy we all enjoy. What we're talking about is being proactive so that we can react quickly after a storm event. All right, so a storm event's going to be a whole different ballgame than the proactive beach nourishment project. It's going to be a situation because the seawall fiasco we had in 2006, 2007 won't happen again. FDUB has made it very clear. And what they're saying is we're not going to do individual permits. There's going to be one, if we have the opportunity to do one big permit and people can decide, I'm going to pay for mine, or not pay for mine, we don't have.
They'll have the choice.
So the county's not gonna actually be doing any renourishing?
That's correct. And I want to.
But, well, of public land, they will.
Restoration, but the thing is restoration projects aren't viable unless they're done in certain lengths. I think a mile is about the minimum, that it will work effectively, okay? And so, that's why I say, after a storm event, there's probably going to be a community or county-wide effort versus, 900 private individual ones. All right, and that's why, like I say, once again, it's the county's attempt to be proactive in a certain sense, so that we can help the people that live here and realize their economy here and enjoy it here, to get back up and where they were.
I get back to the customary use in the private beach ownership, I mean, if we got a mile-long beach that the county's gonna renourish or fix the storm damage, what are we gonna do? Go to all the property owners and say, well, it's gonna cost this much and this is your share and we gotta pay up, or is the county gonna pay for
No,
it?
the individual.
I mean, I'm hearing that
No,
the
no,
private
no.
owners pay for their own.
Well, and that's what's been done so far, John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what people, other than in Miramar Beach.
Everything takes on just a whole new meaning with this customary use argument, and,
This has nothing to do with that.
well, it's the private ownership, the signs on the beaches, not allowing the public to use a beach. Are you gonna use public funds to restore the private beach?
That's a separate issue. What we're talking about is getting and obtaining permits that can be used after a storm blows in here and trashes the beach.
By a
Yeah.
private homeowner or
Or-
the public,
That's
separately.
correct. And Lisa, to your point, the trust issues, so there's multiple steps that need to happen for a beach restoration project. Number one is the design and permitting. That's what we're talking about right now, the design and permitting. And we've done a lot of the design previously from the 30A project, and then the Corps of Engineers have done the HSDR design. We're gonna design or permit the largest scale project we possibly can because, again, it's easier to scale back. The next step would be property ownership, construction easements. The third step would be an erosion control line, and then the fourth step would be ultimately construction. We're only talking about step one. We're not doing anything further until we have those regulatory authorizations. And then once those regulatory authorizations are obtained, I can't speak on behalf of the county, but I'm not aware of any plans for any project. And there's no way a project could move forward without those all other three steps. And that's where I want the private property owners to understand you're going to have plenty of opportunity to comment to the county commission, the TDC, and everyone else, and you're still going to have the opportunity to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Just because this permit is in place does not give the county easement to private property. That is the next step that would have to happen, just as it did before and did not go through.
Yes, that's correct.
This is only a permit to be reactive in an emergency situation.
Just to have it in case we need it. Exactly.
We're getting a 10-year permit?
Yes, it will. Actually, I think there may be an opportunity for a 15-year authorization. We're going to try and get the longest period we can. Again, more shelf life.
But new data will have to be submitted.
Yes, and after a storm, to your point, Debbie, yes, we would need to go do possibly a design update, possibly new survey data collection. That's something that the county's contractors can do within 30, 45 days. But redoing the permit and starting the permitting process, my gosh, we're 2 years behind the clock at that point. So
Well, by the way,
that's what we're trying to say, and that's it.
yeah, and I understand that. I'm just giving you heads up. Because I've already had this discussion with a few people to say, look, there's nothing devious about this. This is to help in the event
Yeah.
there's a devastating storm. It expedites, for those who need the sand. And they, I mean, people have trust issues. It's just,
Well, I've been there
Yeah.
and had to wait on a permit as a private homeowner.
It is.
and
It's tough.
It was horrible.
The private property owners are always going to have the choice of what they do with their property.
Yeah.
This is just another option.
But the
Another
permit will be
option,
there for
another
them already.
Toolbox in case we need it.
Okay, so do you want the are you asking for a recommendation today?
Yes, and if y'all feel free to, that would be beneficial, go to the
I thought we
TDC.
had already voted on this.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That's why you proceeded with the,
We have, that's
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah,
Um,
it's moving the TDC.
Yeah.
This body is already waiting on it. Same discussion we had today, we had before.
yeah. I do have one question, if you happen to know the answer off your top of your head. Miramar Beach, the western end, did get the renourishment previously. Do you happen to know how the surveys turned out for that end at this time? Because now we're what are we now, 13 years, 14 years
Yes.
later?
That's exactly one of the things we're going to be looking at very closely, but the surveyor sent us preliminary data, but to be honest with you, I don't look at anything until he's already signed and sealed it, and he said this is final.
Oh, okay.
So I have not done that yet, but yes, we will be looking at it.
But you think you'll know that in 2 months when we meet
Yeah,
again?
yeah, we'll have that by next week.
Okay, can we have a sooner meeting? No, just kidding.
If we have it sooner, we may take it to the TDC, but it's such critical data, we need to make sure we run through the proper QAQC.
Sure. Well, thanks, Mark.
Well, thank you all.
Thank you. Anything else, anybody? Any comments? Okay, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
thank you, thank you. Philip, do you have time or no?